Understand, understand. No worries. Okay, I think we should get started. Let me just uh one sec, give me one. All right, okay. Then we can get started. So before we begin, let me just do a very quick how Tim also and has always been the host for most of our ecosystem spotlight sessions, right? So really happy really happy to have you here with us again, Edgar. And uh maybe perhaps we can kickstart with a very quick introduction about yourself as well. Like, I think there are a lot of people here, some of them are new, so you can just give us a brief introduction about yourself and what you do in Symbiotic.
Absolutely. So I'm Edgar Roth. I'm a senior protocol specialist at Symbiotic, which means I'm part of the ecosystem team. And essentially, like my main missions within Symbiotic is like researching new verticals and use cases for the protocol itself, and doing business development on the network side. So like bringing more networks to build on our tech stack, and also like business development on the supply side. So getting more curators and more operators interested in our tech. What I do also in the side is I do some video and audio content. So I co-host the Discord AMAs every 2 weeks. And we also have our own podcast, which is called Blueprints, which I also host, and we release things every 2 weeks. So this is like what keeps my day busy.
Awesome, awesome. That's a super nice background, by the way. And I love it when you mentioned that you are the co-host for all the, I would say, podcast sessions and also the ecosystem spotlight sessions. Like, I mean, your voice is a familiar voice. Everybody knows you. If nobody knows you, something is wrong, right? So, love it that you are actually the co-host for all these sessions. It's really, really cool to have you with us. Yeah. And for the sake of those who are new to Symbiotic, maybe you can share a little bit more about what Symbiotic as well.
So essentially, like semiotic, you just have to think. We call it the universal staking framework. Just think of it as like a framework, like a toolkit that can enable any protocol that want to build a staking functionality within their protocol, and that could be for various reasons. One reason could be like the shared security, so either like restaking, so using like ETH that's already staked, or using, for example, like idle capital that's like staked on Ethereum, and that's not thing, but big assets that can like provide like economic security for these different protocols that want to essentially like work in a proof of stake consensus. But we also provide, for example, like things like on-chain insurance, which is something that we will dive into like a little bit later. But essentially, like if you are familiar a bit with like how staking and slashing works, you know that in most of the cases, when you slash another operator for bad behavior, you burn his tokens. You destroy essentially like a piece of economic security. For the insurance use case, we leverage a separate function, which is like similar than slashing, but instead of essentially like burning the tokens, we redistribute them, which enables to essentially like have like on-chain insurance products. Like you can have like a symbiotic vault that is insuring like let's say like your house, for example. And if your house burns, then the symbiotic vault that is insuring house, and it provides that flexibility that if the protocol ever needed more security, it can always accept other assets that are already on Symbiotic, which is like the key benefit.
Awesome, awesome. I love how you touch on the topic of like giving the example of where your house burned and the insurance payout, right? I think that is a topic that we'll dive a little bit deeper into later on, right? So this will be really cool, right? So you who are new here, keep your ears peeled, keep your ears open, and pay attention because there'll be a lot of new alphas dropping. Yeah. So I think let's move on to the bigger questions. I would say the more exciting questions, if you ask me. So in terms of like the latest updates, right? So what are some of the latest updates in the technical development front?
Well, I think one thing I should definitely mention is that we've added like points of the points of the network on our front end, which enables like people that stake on vaults to have like more visibility as to like what exactly they are earning. And what's next in line is the most important part are rewards. So actually, like some networks have already started to pay rewards. What's next to do on our end, on the technical side, is just showcase that on the UI with proper APIs and so on and so on. This is something that should be announced in the next week. Staking protocol, you really have to let people pay for the economic security. If people do not pay, if people do not reward the economic security, then like there is no incentive for that economic security to stay, and at some point it will leave. So I thought I mentioned that. We've also like updated a little bit our point system to allow like a higher like growth rate. We've added a couple of networks to the mainnet, which essentially had like some effects to like reduce the amount of points, the total amount of points that was like given out to stakers. So we've like rebalanced that. And probably the most exciting part is the symbiotic relay, right? I'm pretty sure we've talked about it in our latest symbiotic sync, but the symbiotic relay essentially like lets anybody stake in a multi-chain manner. And the most important part is, I would say, I guess, like multi-chain verification, right? Before, when you had like stake on Ethereum, you could not like verify like the stake information outside of Ethereum. The symbiotic relay is essentially this sidecar network that will be able to communicate this like basic staking information throughout the entire crypto ecosystem. And of course, we're going to start with EVM. And yeah, so think of it as like a framework that will enable networks or protocols to build staking in a multi-chain manner, and also have that staking be unified and not fragmented, which is super important, especially for use cases like oracles and bridges who are multi-chain by nature. So it's definitely something that like we hope will provide a lot of value to the crypto ecosystem.
Awesome, awesome. Really nice to hear that. Like, I think we have come really far since day one till now. Like, Symbiotic has been building for quite some time now, and we have achieved quite a fair bit. So it's really, really cool, right? So I think today we will cover four other topics as well, which is pretty interesting. So I'll ask the first one right now. So the first one is basically like I've seen that we have started exploring slashing insurance vaults, which is called SIVs, right? Can you explain? I know earlier on you touched a little bit briefly or using insurance concept, right? So maybe you can explain a little bit how it works and why is it like a new primitive for managing on-chain risk?
Absolutely. So this slashing insurance vaults is essentially like a deployable framework that was developed by Enrique Diaz, my coworker, and RA Square. And essentially, like it does like build upon like this concept of using Symbiotic for insurance matters, for on-chain insurance matters, and it's like really like a deployable framework that anybody could use. Anybody could like fork and essentially like use for their own use cases to create like pools of capital that provide economic protection, economic guarantees against slashing events. And it also includes like the risk pricing models to help like users like better price the insurance, which is something that like people have been struggling to do. It's a very hard thing to do to price insurance in the correct manner. And yeah, like so it's focused around like slashing. So like if you're familiar with proof of stake, you know that like slashing is the main risk if your node operator misbehaves. And yeah, while slashing is rare in crypto, it it happens, and it remains possible like still like for 4 years after like the merge has happened. So it's still something that people should like a risk that people should take into account. And most slashing arrangements today, the slashing insurance, they are currently like off-chain. They're not verifiable. They're like it's basically like a piece of paper that like an operator is sharing with like an insurance provider. And these SIVs, so the slashing insurance vaults, like it's essentially like a replicable framework that enable all of this to be like transparent and on-chain. So it makes it like much more reliable. Now, the important question, why is it significant? It's significant because it introduces like a composable, a staking toolkit layer. Like essentially, like it's a way to like standardize like the way you protect against a very basic risk in the ecosystem and a very important risk. And it will enable like high risk strategies, for example, like LRTs, to build like safety nets, because like LRTs in the future, when there will be like more slashing, when there will be more risks, it will be very important for them that like they have like the primitives for them to like take more risk and always make sure that like they are insured. So it's going to like foster essentially like a much more like staking ecosystem, much more resilient, I would say.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you so much for sharing a little bit more about that. Earlier on, you mentioned something about the pricing, right? Like you mentioned that pricing all this insurance is difficult, right? So perhaps if you can take on one of my personal questions, like how, in this case, how does Symbiotic actually price all these, I would say, insurance in that sense for the slashing purposes and kind of like make it more resilient in that sense?
It's important to understand that like we don't price it ourselves. We have provided a framework to build like a slashing insurance, and like a framework to kind of to give people an idea how to slash it. But slashing is very complicated because it varies a lot between like chain to chain. Like slashing risk is not the same on Ethereum that it is like on Cosmos chains. So we don't price it ourselves, just like and it's of course like all props to Enrique and RE squared that basically worked on this pricing model, but it's a model that involves a complicated math that like I don't want to bore you with, but there is a white paper that they released last month, and if it's something that interests you, like I would really encourage you to read the paper.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you so much, Edgar, for sharing this. So, if all of you are interested, if any one of you is interested in the slashing insurance vaults, you can actually also head over to our Symbiotic 101 channel. We actually share a bit more about SIVs as well. Yeah. So if you are keen, just head over there to learn a little bit more. But thank you, Edgar, for sharing. So let's move on to the next question, which is recently I saw that Cap stablecoin went live on Ethereum mainnet, right? I think this is something which is really bullish, if you ask me. So how does Symbiotic actually fits into their ecosystem, and where can user actually try it out?
This is indeed extremely bullish because CAP is the first use case that essentially like builds upon like this insurance concept, this on-chain insurance concept using restaking. So what is CAP? Like CAP is a stablecoin protocol that has like essentially like stablecoins in its reserve, and that lets operators, so in this case more like financial institutions and other asset managers, not node operators, they're not going to run infra. These operators, they borrow from the stablecoin reserve and they generate yield in various risk strategies. Why is Symbiotic important within this context? Symbiotic is the backbone of CAP because it provides the insurance part of the system. So if operators essentially like default, or like they don't give back the money, or they don't meet their hurdle rate, for example, they will have like essentially like symbiotic vaults that, in order to allow the operator to borrow from the reserve, symbiotic vaults underwrite the risk taken by operators. So if operators default, the symbiotic vaults will be like slashed, and through like the redistribution method that I was talking about, to reimburse the protocol's reserve. What's the TLDR on all of this? It's very complicated, but like if you look at the documentation, like I suggest you just look at the diagram. It's much more straightforward than just hearing it. But what's the TLDR? The TLDR is that Symbiotic enables like the CAP stablecoin to have better than benchmark yield while not having like deep egg risk like Terra Luna, for example, because everything is insured thanks to the symbiotic redistribution function and thanks to the symbiotic vaults. So also it should be noted that at the moment, Symbiotic is the only protocol on which CAP is built, and why is that? It's because we released that redistribution function over 8 months ago, and it gave a lot of time essentially for like the CAP team to do audits and tests. And this, if you're wondering why like CAP is only live on Symbiotic, it's because we were faster to ship the features that they wanted.
Damn, Symbiotic on the top. Yeah. So my next
Yes,
question is,
sir.
where can users actually try it out?
So try it out on cap.app to supply stablecoins, and go on the Symbiotic UI and select cap, and you will have the list of the various votes that support cap today. I don't believe that the delegations have started with size yet. There still needs to be like agreements between the vault creators and the operators for that to arrive. But the supply of like the state stablecoin, so like the amount that like the operators can borrow, is already in the tens of millions. So it should start anytime soon, essentially. And I believe that like the yield of that stablecoin is already like something like 10 to 12%. So really beating the benchmark.
Yeah, like for those of you who are interested, like stablecoin yield above 10% is really high. Like you really can't find it outside a lot. Like you can't really find so many of them outside. So it's really one of the highest out there. So do check them out. I think it is really cool. And thank you, Edgar, for actually leaking this alpha, dropping this alpha to the community today. All right, so now let's move on to the next one, which is on Cycle Network, right? So I saw that Cycle Network also went live recently. So the same question is, how exactly is Cycle using Symbiotic to actually secure its infrastructure, and why is this significant? So overall, I think most of our questions today are structured towards our partners, and we really want to highlight these partners because they have been supporting us for a very long time, and we really appreciate them. So we also want our users to kind of like go out there and try them out as well. So hence these questions. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I mean, Cycle Network, it's essentially like a chain abstraction layer. Like when you're using like cross-chain products, there's always going to be like like an ecosystem of operators that facilitate the swaps and the bridging. And like Cycle Network is really just aiming to use like all of the primitives that like crypto has today to really abstract like everything that's happening when you're doing like a question swap or a question transaction. How is a Cycle Network leveraging Symbiotic? The Symbiotic operators, so this time the node operators, they are running the software of the Cycle Network in order to provide essentially like infrastructure, like to do the actions that the Cycle Network like asks them to do. So to essentially like make sure that like the bridging and the swapping is being completely streamlined, that it has like a high uptime, and also the most important part, like because there is staking, and Cycle is backed by many assets. I think it has like 400 million in economic security, including the Cycle token. It is extremely decentralized and extremely secure, so that people that are using Cycle Networks product can always feel safe.
Yeah, I think that's really important when it comes to like the ethos of crypto itself being decentralized, right? So this is where Cycle actually taps on this and actually becomes like, in a sense, very decentralized, right? In that sense. So thank you so much, Edgar, for sharing again. So I think the next question is super interesting. I think the question just got released like early today, and I think this has something got to do with uh the rewards as well. So the next question is, Symbiotic is launching an external rewards today, right? So what exactly are they, and how do they work? And which partners are already live with them?
So external rewards, to put it extremely simply, is just the action of rewarding the economic security and networks. So external networks rewarding the economic security. So a lot of the ones that we've mentioned before, like Hyperlane, Tansy, Cycle, all of these guys have started to like have like essentially like a reward distribution strategy. Now, it's not shown on the UI yet, but it's something that is like effectively like happening. Like for example, like operators can already like claim rewards for Tansi. So it's something we're working on to like include them in the UI, but like at the network level, like these reward distribution mechanics are ready.
So in this case, would that mean that users are earning both symbiotic points and also our partners' points as well?
Exactly. So I mean
Awesome.
that would be like external points, For example, like Calypso, they don't have rewards yet, and they have like put their points on our API, so you can see like for example if your vote if you stake to a vote and that vote delegates some economic security to Calypso, you shall see like the Calypso points, which is not necessarily like the case with the other for every single network, and some networks that I just mentioned, they actually have like rewards soon. So you don't need to worry about points and their future value. Like there's actual rewards.
That's really cool to hear. Thank you so much, Edgar. I think that will kind of like double up as a extra incentive for more users or more people out there to actually stake on Symbiotic itself. This is a really cool feature
Yeah.
that we are launching today. Yeah, thank you
And
so
it's
much.
only normal that they get there. It's only normal that they get there because like you cannot like like of course there is like symbiotic points. There are like incentives for people to stake and to delegate to networks, but that's just a bootstrapping phase. In the long run, like the networks will have to pay for their own economic security. One thing that I always say when I'm asked about rewards is economic security in the long run pays for itself. So this is, I think, something that's extremely important, and it's about like actual people like paying for like security that they have. Like you don't expect to like hire a bodyguard and not pay him. You need security, and that security needs like to be rewarded.
I definitely agree with you on this. Like, there can't be any local out there requesting for like security and not paying for it. Like, it's kind of ridiculous. So I definitely agree with you on the bootstrapping phase, and then eventually they have to pay on their own. This is definitely I'll say a direction that we really need to go towards because it's more sustainable that way as well. If you think about it. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing so much, Edgar. So I think the next question I have for you is basically other than these four questions that we have. So in terms of scaling, right? So what are some of the new developments in the BD marketing partnership front? Like, are we expecting more new partners coming on? Or I think this is kind of like an alpha league for the community as well.
Yeah, that's kind of the problem I have sometimes is that I never know like how much I can really share. I never know like I know I have an idea of what's public. But I mean, if people had to be excited about something, what would they be excited about? They would be excited about external rewards. They will be excited about like partnerships with other ecosystem. So if you follow the things that I've been saying for the past for the thing that we've been sharing for the past months, the symbiotic relay will enable like symbiotic the protocol to go like above in Ethereum's modular vision, it will be able to go like above like the L1. So what the types of partnerships that we're going to announce recently are essentially like the expansion of Symbiotic outside of the base L1, which is extremely excited because like it will essentially like provide like an economic security for Ethereum's entire like modular ecosystem. So it's definitely something that's extremely important. And yeah, like we also have like very good networks in the pipeline that like are waiting to be announced. And because these are big networks, it's a bit it can be a bit complicated to just like announce them like point blank. But you should be, I think, in mid September you should be quite happy about like something that we will announce in that front.
Thank you for sharing this, Edgar. I think this is a time for the communities the community to actually stay, I'll say, active and stay excited, right? So there's a lot of things going on in the community. There's a lot of things going on in the entire project front, and also a lot of new releases as well. So I think this is a really good time to stay bullish on Symbiotic if you're not yet bullish on Symbiotic. Like if you listen closely to our host Edgar, he has been showing so much alpha, and if you caught none of them, I'm kind of like sad. But I'm pretty sure that if you play back the recording and if you listen to what Edgar has mentioned again, this is a really exciting time for Symbiotic if you ask me. Yeah. So thank you so much, Edgar. Like throughout the entire session, you have just been dropping alpha after alpha after alpha after alpha. I'm not sure if anybody has not caught up to it yet. Like I think they should really listen attentively. So I think that
I appreciate it.
that's more. Yeah, I think that's most of the questions for on the development side, on the I would say product side of things, right? So let's move on to some of the community questions. Like as a community member of Symbiotic, right? How can one get more involved?
I think that's a really good question, and it's something that some people like forget to do sometimes. But we have so much written content. For example, like we released the blog post and the white paper about slashing insurance vault 1 month ago. We released a lot of like announcements with our partners. We talk a lot also on our blog about relay, and most importantly, like we have like a great community that is on Discord, but also on Twitter. So on Twitter there is like a symbiotic community, like like X can have like these communities, and we have a community for symbiotic. And you can follow like me and other members of the core team on X, follow what we post, follow the alpha that we share. And yeah, and most importantly, it's all about like uh, understanding the protocol and sharing it with your friends and your broader community. I see a lot of people trying very hard to like create content about symbiotic, and I think it's great. Maybe the only thing that I wish could have been done a little different is a bit less use of AI, and try to do like maybe like shorter, more simpler context that really like show that you understand how the protocol works, and the different like verticals and narratives that we share on our socials. I think it's so much better to just like write it with your own words, make sure that you understand like what we're sharing, and not just like copy paste our docs into ChatGPT to create like a fake content, because it's something that we can see when it's AI made. Uh, Also, we have like the Discord AMAs every 2 weeks, where we essentially put the spotlight on people in our ecosystem to talk about like what they're doing on top of Symbiotic, their business priorities, and so on. And yeah, maybe the most important part is following the networks that are building on us. If you give strength and power to the symbiotic networks, you give power directly to symbiotic, because symbiotic is nothing without its networks, the protocols building on top of their tech stack. And maybe one thing that I would add is, as I said before, I'm hosting this podcast that we've called Blueprints. So if you're interested about the journey of protocol builders and their take on the space, I think it's probably like a great podcast to learn more about that.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing. I definitely agree with you on the part when you talk about content, right? Like there are so many content creators out there nowadays, right? And then I see most of them use AI, and they're just AI slots, right? They just don't edit it in their own words, and they just copy paste, right? And it makes things very, I would say, fake in general. It doesn't look very genuine. Everything just looks the same across, right? So, one thing I've yet to really see is basically like content that is really simplified to the level where even a 5-year-old can actually understand how Symbiotic works, right? So, if the community is able to generate this kind of content, I think that will really, really be a game changer. Like imagine sharing this kind of content to your friends around who are not crypto natives, and they have a look at it and they be like, oh, I understand how Symbiotic works. I think that's a real game changer, because if you look deep enough, Symbiotic is really complex. There's a lot of technical stuffs going on behind the scene, right? But if we are able to bring out that simplicity to allow others to understand us even more, I think mm, that's a winner, man. I think that's a very, very big win if you ask me. And yeah, definitely for what Edgar has mentioned as well, the AMAs every 2 weeks we have the ecosystem spotlight. Do join us on those sessions, and once a month we have Symbiotic Sync, and we are on our fifth sync now. That means we are on our fifth month now. It's been a really long journey, and I'm really excited to see that we are going to be having a lot more months coming. So yeah, and also don't forget the blueprints, which Edgar is also the main host of that podcast. So do tune in into those series as well. I'll be sharing them on the announcement whenever they drop any series. Yeah, so for everyone to tune in to. Yeah, thank you so much, Edgar, for sharing. And now I think let's pick maybe a few questions from the community itself. Uh, who may have some questions about Symbiotic or some of our partners. Hopefully, it's not too difficult. Yeah. So I'm looking at uh, Rory's question, Lynn's question. So Lynn's question is pretty simple, but I also think that this question is really important. Edgar. So her question is, how do you envision symbiotic staking impacting the entire ecosystem over the next 6 to 12 months?
I think like fundamentally, like one of the big problems in crypto is that despite what we think, a lot of protocols have like have their security and their guarantees backed by like either proof of authority, so like a reputation based, like, and it's like essentially a black box. The validators are not elected, and it's just like based on like relationships with like foundations and multi-sigs, which is even worse sometimes. And I think like having a framework to just like simplify the use of staking and building like like a secure decentralized network backed by staking using a framework that anybody could use. I think this will like bring a lot more like security and trust in the crypto ecosystem in the long run. And it's I think something that will help definitely a lot with in terms of adoption, and probably like mostly the adoption of institutionals, which unfortunately like they seem to be the only one really caring about security sometimes, besides like the people, the old school like crypto native ethos driven people.
Thank you so much. I hope that answers your question, Lin. The next question is by Marchi. He asked, how does Symbiotic plan to evolve the slashing insurance model to make it even more transparent and applicable across different blockchains, given that varies greatly from network to network? And what are the key benefits that cap gains from integrating with Symbiotic? And oh wait, there's three questions to this. So let's take the first question first, which is earlier on that one, the earlier question. Sorry.
Like, can you repeat that one? I missed it a little
Oh
bit.
yes, for sure. How does Symbiotic plan to evolve the slash insurance model to make it even more transparent and applicable across different blockchains, given that risk varies greatly from network to network?
So maybe Enric would be the best person to answer this, but I believe that the framework is flexible enough that you can essentially like take into account the various different slashing risk in different ecosystems. So I believe like essentially like the answer is it's already the case now.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I hope that answers your question, Machi. Okay, let's touch on his second question, which is what are the key benefits that CAP gains from integrating with Symbiotic? And can we say that this insurance model makes the project immune to scenarios like the collapse of Terra Luna?
Exactly. It's symbiotic is like the security layer of cap. Without symbiotic, like there will be like risk that like operators like lose money and don't repay the stable coin back, and you could have like a cascading effect of DPEX. So without Symbiotic, like there is no insurance that like the stablecoin keeps its stability, which is extremely important for a stablecoin, which is extremely important, especially if the stablecoin is used in DeFi. So yeah, like the probably like Cap is like one of the most like understandable and like product market fit use of Symbiotic.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I hope that answers your question, Marchi. So your final question, Marchi, is what is unique about Cycle Network's approach to using symbiotic operators, and can this model be considered a benchmark for future cross-chain infrastructures in terms of security and decentralization?
To be honest, I don't think there's anything special. I think like a Cycle Network is just like a very good protocol that has like prioritized decentralization and economic security, and that understand that like it's something that's extremely important. And maybe like the only thing that makes it unique is that like there's not that many protocols that like have that care for like security in the ecosystem nowadays. People sometimes prioritize like a fast growing like a business development plan versus like just like security. And I mean, it's it's completely like subjective as to like what you need to prioritize. I personally think that like economic security and like security in general should be like the first priority of any protocol.
Awesome. Yes, so I hope this answers all your questions, Machi. Like Edgar has taken three questions from you, and I think it's really cool you're asking three questions. There's a lot of questions. Okay, let's take one final question from this person called Gifted Kindness. He asked if operators are utilizing strategies involving real world assets, right? How does CAP mitigate the regulatory risks and potential legal liabilities that could arise from the protocol and its users, especially across different jurisdictions? I think this question is more for CAP, and but I'm not sure if we are able to pick on
Yeah,
this.
I don't even
Yeah.
think it's for cap. It's this question is really like a question that like one of the symbiotic curators, so one of the symbiotic vaults would ask like an operator. Say like if an operator is asking a curator for underwriting or like delegations for a specific RWA use case, it is on the symbiotic curator to do its due diligence about the different risks linked to that specific strategy.
Ah, okay, I got it. So hopefully that answers your questions, Gifted Kindness. So okay, I think we have taken five questions, right? Yeah, and these are really good five questions, I'll say. And thank you so much to everyone for tuning in today. I think we have come to the end of today's session. Uh, First and foremost, thank you, Edgar, for taking some time out to join us today. I think today's session has overrun by a little bit, but as always, you have always been providing us with a lot of development updates and a lot of alphas, which I truly appreciate deep down from the bottom of my heart. And I also hope that everyone in the audience appreciate as well. Yeah, so thank you, Edgar, for taking that small little time out to join us. Okay, and also to everyone here today, the 254 of you, or even more earlier on. Thank you guys for tuning in today. I hope you guys listen closely to what Edgar has shared. He has shared a lot of alpha, and I hope you guys caught it. Yeah. So thank you guys, and I'll see you guys probably next week, next Thursday again, maybe for the ecosystem spotlight. So really excited to see you guys again, man. And Edgar, before we close out the session, do you have any last alpha you want to leak to everybody? As always.
Well, I wish I could have like more to share with you guys, but yeah, I really appreciate like you guys tuning in, being so like attentive and just like very so curious about Symbiotic. It's you guys are a great community, and we're very happy and lucky to have you guys. So thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to like listen to Symbiotic podcast, follow us on Twitter, and yeah, tune in for the next AMA next Thursday.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Edgar. And my last message to everybody is please, I think this is the right time to stay bullish and stay excited about Symbiotic. Like there's a lot of new things coming out. So stay attentive, and keep the notifications on. There'll be a lot of things coming out. I think it's super exciting. And before, oh yeah, sorry. And one last thing, we will be having a poker session, just a community activity show. We'll be having a poker session later on. So if you guys are up for a game of poker, do feel free to join us later on. You get to earn XPs as well. So yeah, thank you guys, thank you everyone, and I'll see you guys later on at the poker session. All right. So take care, Edgar. Please go and have a good rest. I know you're not feeling really well. See a doctor if you need to, please. But health comes first. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
All right. So I'll see you guys, everyone. Take care, Charles, and bye bye.
Bye.